Coming up, the Bundy Ranch, the BLM, and what a confrontation over grazing leases is really about. Chris Udall has worked the land as a cattle rancher. Dick Morris has worked the political angles from Washington. They'll both join us this hour. In hour two, one of the GOP's funding fathers has a new book, Richard Viguerie, on the 100-year war among Republicans. And in our third hour, Howie Carr reflects on terrorism here at home on the eve of the Boston bombing anniversary. America's Forum starts right now. Monday, here we are, there you are, and we welcome you to Hour 1 of America's Forum. I'm J.D. Hayworth.
And I'm John Bachman. It's great to be back here at work with you, J.D. And of course, over this weekend, a lot of us were paying very close attention to what was going on in Nevada. So let's talk about that a little bit. A cattle rancher has won his recent land battle, or the most recent round in his long-standing battle with the feds. Cliven Bundy won the 7-day fight over the cattle roundup that led to the arrest of several protesters outside of Las Vegas. The government claims Bundy's cattle are grazing illegally, that he owes the American people in excess of $1 million. Bundy says his herd has grazed on this land since all the way back in 1870 through his family, but the Bureau of Land Management has stepped down and now will not enforce a court order to remove Mr. Bundy's cattle. There's also a new wrinkle in this case. Reports say that Senator Harry Reid's son may be involved in this long standoff. Rory Reid is tied to a Chinese solar company that wants the land for an energy farm. The younger Reid is representing the company in their efforts to move into Nevada. And guess who heads the Federal Bureau of Land Management? Former Harry Reid Senior Policy Advisor Neil Corns. And joining us right now to discuss this from several different angles is Dick Morris, a former political analyst. Dick, it's great to have you here with us on set.
Good. Well, the corruption of the Reid family, of the way he has 4 sons, all of whom at various points have been involved in lobbying. And it's really a family industry. And this may be another case of that. It also, the other thing that is motivating the federal government in trying to seize this land, and in all of these land controversies around the U.S., is Agenda 21, which is the compact that was signed in 1990 in Rio by the UN, including the U.S. signed it, that promotes land use policies that are opposed to rural areas. They want nobody to live in the countryside. They don't want farmers. They don't want people living in rural areas because it'll encourage people to drive. They want us all packed into cities, walking and using mass transit. And as a result, the U.S. government has really declared war on rural America. And the land management wanting to seize this land is part of that. But in this case, it had a special impetus because of Reid. I think the reason they backed down, obviously, is that ringing loud in their ears is Waco and Ruby Ridge and the Branch Davidian, all of these tragedies that took place with overzealous federal law enforcement, and indirectly Oklahoma City, which was in retaliation for Waco. You simply cannot have any reason for the federal government to start firing on its people. And you had 200 armed people, including snipers, surrounding that property to round up 2,000 head of cattle.
Well, and what follows is...
I don't know what their beef was with the government.
I knew you can't resist that. Setting aside the puns, when we take a look at... It's Monday, so we'll grant you that one. If you're scoring at home, that's a mulligan for Morris. More serious topic here, and that is the expansion of an alphabet soup of acronyms, federal agencies with security forces. Now, I understand technically the county sheriff was in charge, but BLM was calling the shots up at the Bundy Ranch. This whole notion
As I think about that, ATF, BLM, the Park Service, all of them have their little armies. Yeah.
And that's the thing, little armies, not so much law enforcement, but it appears to be crossing the line into almost a paramilitary situation.
And this goes with another theme that I've been talking about a lot lately, which is in the IRS scandal and others, the EPA overreaches, the National Labor Relations Board, the FCC trying to take over the internet, you see the growth, the infiltration of the federal bureaucracy by the left. Not just capture the presidency and the cabinet, but capture the people that work in the agencies, largely through very liberal unions, through hiring policies that bring only leftists in, so that the people who work for, like, the IRS are not people who want to raise money for the government. They're people who want to hurt the rich. And EPA are not people who want to enforce the law. They want to stop industry and fight global warming. And they're bureaucrats with a cause who are far worse than bureaucrats who just are inert.
But what about the cause of the folks who showed up here in support of the Bundys? And I'm not saying the Bundys were in the right on this. According to the law, technically they're in the wrong here, but that's a topic for another debate. But you saw the response here from many of these militiamen, guys who ardently support the Second Amendment. And it's clear what the limitations of the BLM are in situations like this when you have snipers on overpasses. Yeah, I mean, the point is that if there weren't this massive outpouring of federal force, there wouldn't be this reaction. By the way, I have a little side story that will interest your viewers. At the end of Clinton's first term, he was determined to fire Janet Reno. And he backed down at the very last minute and reappointed her. And the reason was that she threatened to tell the truth about Waco, which is that it was not her responsibility to make the call to exterminate the compound, but rather the president made that call.
Now, this is more than a side note, Dick, and this is more, some your critics would say revisionist history. You've raised this.
I was there. Wasn't revisionist.
All right, let's drill down on this. Amplify what you're telling us right now.
Reno threatened the president with telling the truth about Waco. And that caused the president to back down from her reappointment. In fact, there had already been a clearance process underway for Bill Weld, the governor of Massachusetts,
and the Republican,
to become the Attorney General. And Bill and Hillary had both spoken with him. He had agreed not to name federal prosecutors, special prosecutors, which is what they wanted, and it was all set. And then he went into a meeting with her. And he told me that she begged and pleaded, saying that she didn't want to be she didn't want to be fired, because if she were fired, it would look like he was firing her over Waco. And I knew that what that meant was that she would tell the truth about what happened in Waco. Now, to be fair, that's my supposition. I know what went on in Waco, but that was the cause. But I do know that she told him that if you fire me, I'm going to talk about Waco.
So more of a suggestion there between two attorneys and two experienced political figures who would understand nuance.
And that was after Clinton had told me Janet Reno was the worst mistake I ever made. He hated her.
Well, he wanted Kimba Wood in that job initially, which was interesting.
Well, what had happened was he submitted two other names, both of whom had problems with nannies and housekeepers. Then he appointed Reno. And Reno's rabbi was Bernie Nussbaum, who was the counsel to the White House. He then fired Nussbaum. And Reno was Nussbaum's person. And once he fired Nussbaum as counsel, he had no way to control Reno. And for the rest of the administration, she was a constant thorn in everybody's side.
What may be a thorn in the side of our constitutional republic, our method of selecting presidential and vice presidential, not only nominees, but the winners, the Electoral College, you're telling me that's in jeopardy? Give us your unique take on this, Dick.
Yeah, this is something nobody knows, but it's very important. There is an effort funded by the Soros people, although it has considerable Republican support, to get an agreement among states that have a combined total of at least 270 electoral votes, the majority, under which they all agree that whoever wins the popular vote nationally will get their electoral votes, even if their voters vote for the other guy. And so this agreement is to take effect when enough states to constitute a majority of the Electoral College ratify it. And so far, states totaling 135 electoral votes have ratified it. And another 100, it's passed one house of the legislature. And it's curious because some of the states that have ratified it are Republican and some of them are Democrat. What they all have in common is none of them are swing states. So they feel neglected in the process.
Well, so their feeling of neglect leads to an end run about what the Constitution says right now. The whole notion of being a republic and having an electoral college.
I personally am not opposed to choosing presidents based on popular vote. I think the electoral college is an anachronism. But I do not believe the way to amend the Constitution is an end run around it by a compact that supersedes. See, the Constitution says that legislatures may select their electors any way they want.
Exactly.
And what they're doing now is they will then select electors who are pledged to vote for any candidate that wins the popular vote.
And it becomes winner take all, which changes some of the dynamics as well. Lots more to talk about.
I mean,
Dick,
hell
as
of a
always,
way to amend the Constitution.
It is. It's disturbing. We want your input on that, and you can let us know about this via social media. Twitter @Newsmax TV, #America's Forum. Stay with us.